And the Economic Development Commission. The Economic Development Commission does not currently have a quorum, so they will not officially call to order, but they were invited to this meeting and several members are present. I will also ask for confirmation of the appropriate meeting notice.
The agenda was posted at Dave's Ace Hardware, Piggly Wiggly, and the Shaw Municipal Center.
Okay, thank you. Apologize about that. Before we move on with the rest of the meeting, obviously the loss of Lieutenant Conger earlier this week is something that's on all of our minds. There will be a lot of time for storytelling and remembrances and all of that tomorrow at the memorial service and at the funeral. I started to try and think about what to say tonight, and so I started looking through all of his accomplishments here with the city of Milton that spanned over nearly half of his lifetime, over 21 years. And there's just too much to sum up. So I thought tonight, at a minimum, we could take a brief moment of silence and think about John, who left us far too soon. Thank you. We'll move on to the item 2. It looks like that's a quorum then for economic development, right?
Right, yeah, so call to order and approve the agenda of the Economic Development Commission.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, I'll move on to item number 3. I'll welcome all citizens and address any questions or concerns that are not on the agenda for this evening. Seeing none, we'll move, Jerry, go ahead.
Agenda item number 4, to approve the Economic Development Commission minutes of August 27th, 2013. Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On to item number 5, which is discussion and possible action on the Highway 26, Highway 59 Corridor Crossroads Business Park Concept Plan by the Economic Development and then by the Common Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At tonight's Plan Commission meeting, the Plan Commission has recommended that the council adopt a Highway 26, Highway 59 master plan that was prepared by Vanderwall and Associates, the city's planning firm. Back in June of 2013, after transitioning healthcare plan administrators and saving approximately $32,000, Mayor Fraser recommended that we take some of those savings and use our planning firm for planning services to create a planning document that would serve us as the guiding tool for us in economic development along the Highway 26, Highway 59 corridor. That planning document is in your package for your review, and it essentially demonstrates that all properties to the west of Highway 26, the new Highway 26, would be primarily designated for commercial development. Properties to the east of Highway 26 or toward Whitewater would primarily be serviced as industrial properties for future development. In addition to that planning document being created, Economic Development Commission is aware and supported the city's purchase of 23 additional acres in the industrial park, properties formerly owned by Cary Hall, and the annexation of an additional 183 acres into the industrial park that essentially doubled the park. In addition to doing that, the Economic Development Commission supported and the Common Council and Joint Review Board approved an amendment to TIF District Number 6 that subsequently brought in all 183 acres of new annexed land into the business park into TIF District Number 6. And last but certainly not least, through the work of Inga Cushman, some assistance from staff at the Milton Area Chamber of Commerce, City Engineer Gary Vogel, Director of Public Works Howard Robinson, about a 9-month process that was completed in partnership with Rock County 5.0. I saw 4 of those sites in the industrial park designated as shovel-ready. A little bit of history about that process. There's phone book size books up at City Hall that has all sorts of information about utilities, rail access, lighting, soil boring testings, you name it, from soup to nuts. All that information is now readily available on those sites. both electronically on the city's website and in paper format. So when developers come looking, we have all that information readily available. So between the planning document, the shovel-ready site designations, as well as the annexation of those properties, we feel that Milton is very, very well positioned for future economic development. And I would encourage the Economic Development Commission to endorse the planning document as presented by Vanderwall and Associates.
I would move to approve the economic plan as presented by Vanderwall.
I'll second that.
On the Economic Development Commission, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just say it again, Jerry.
Same speech as the council. The primary purpose of actually formally adopting this plan is thereby so when different projects come in, and the mayor and I and their city's economic development team, and then ultimately the Economic Development Commission reviews these, and then forwards them to the city's plan commission, that we know that the project is either consistent or not consistent with the planning document. The infrastructure that we put into the industrial park gets into the millions of dollars very, very quickly. The property value in the industrial park gets into the millions of dollars very quickly. So we want to make sure that projects that are forthcoming are consistent with the city's master plan as it pertains to the development of the Crossroads Business Park. And therefore, we'd ask the county council to adopt this as a master planning document.
Questions or concerns from the council? Okay.
I so move. Second.
Motion and a second to adopt the concept plan. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item 7, the update on shovel-ready designated sites in Crossroads Business Park.
Mr. Mayor, actually, I talked about this a little bit, so I'll be brief, but the work that was done in partnership with Rock County 5-0, it was done through Austin Consulting, and it saw all of the information that any developer could possibly want about those sites with respect to its rail access, roadway access, soil boring testings, all of those things. Its existing utilities in terms of gas and electric and future utility options were all made readily available for 4 shovel-ready designated sites in the park. Since we have announced that shovel-ready designation and held a developer broker breakfast briefing that was held on October 9th, we've gotten about half a dozen calls and inquiries from prospective developers seeking to do development in the Crossroads Business Park. Some of them have already been reduced to prospective site plans and are scheduled for technical review meetings. We anticipate projects to be announced as early as late November or early December of this year. So the value of doing that process is already paying dividends for us in the economic development front. There is no required action other than to just update you that a process that we had been engaged in for just about 9 months has now been completed.
Okay, couple of bits of business here before we go into closed session. Economic Development Commission first.
Yeah, you review it, mine, please.
Economic Development Commission, consideration of a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating purchasing of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. Reference possible land annexation and industrial park development.
Common Council, consideration of a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85(1)(e), deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public property, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Reference possible land annexation and industrial park development.
First, Administrator Schutz will call a vote of the Economic Development Commission.
Yeah, we just need a second to Commission Member Adams's
Sorry.
motion to move into closed session for the EDC. Okay, motion and second to go into closed session for the EDC. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Do we have a second for the council motion? Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And I believe the record reflect for the commission as well.
I motion, and can I get a second? I heard two of them, Linder and Adams.
Whatever,
Okay.
whichever way you wanna go.
I think Linder might have gotten first, then
All
Adams
right.
second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Same question for the council.
Correct.
Can you read it off again?
I sure can. A motion of the City of Milton Common Council to fully endorse and support further exploration of the County Highway M interchange as a part of the Interstate I-39 I-90 expansion project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, item 14.
And Economic Development Commission, motion to adjourn is in order.
A second.
Motion and a second on adjournment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, EDC members.
Thank you very much for spending the night with us here. Soldier on or take a minute? Soldier on. Item 15 is consent agenda.
I make a motion, we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, my apologies. If we can go back to item C1, an approval to purchase lighted school crosswalk pedestrian signs,
That should have come down.
if it could please.
Okay.
And that can actually be, I believe it's, would it be under new business or? Talking about it once.
It's only been in public safety.
Oh, a little bit of public safety. Okay, so that would go new business, wherever you want, Mayor.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let's do the consent agenda motion again with that change.
Okay, I erased the previous motion. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 16. Old business. Discussion and possible action providing direction on the design of a new city logo.
Mayor, you see before you in your packets, two different logo design options. The one was the tree, that was created by Signal Fire. The other is a rendering of the Crossroads Business Park. That was a symbol that was created by, what was the name of it? Stacy
Hodge, I think?
Hodge, thank you. And then some adjustments made by Mayor Frazier and the folks at Signal Fire. After the tree got out publicly, there were several emails, phone calls that I got from members of the business community expressing some concern. It was too much like the cities of Janesville. An alderperson for Wink called me. Some business owners emailed me, called me, said, I really don't like that. I don't think it's original enough. They expressed some concern. So as we were doing the shovel-ready site designation process and getting through that, Mayor had created this alternate logo option. And we sent that out to
This is the old one.
members of the ad hoc sign committee, members of the business community. And generally speaking, it was received more favorably than the tree. What was in no doubt was that everybody that I've talked to is in complete agreement that the tagline of a community since 1838 has been universally received. I'm not getting any phone calls or any emails saying, I don't like it, I think it's silly, nothing to that effect. What has really kind of been in question is, some folks have emailed me saying they don't really care for, they don't really like, or they're not that wild about the, what I'll call version 2, which is the Crossroads Business Park logo. And some are, kind of pretty tight with the tree, some are indifferent. So it's, folks, it's a project we've been working at for about 2 years now. And I would encourage you, based on all the exciting things that we have happening, to make a decision. Or if you don't wish to make a decision, if you absolutely don't like either one of these, come back next meeting with some ideas of stuff that you like, because,
I like that.
okay. And then, that's a decision, that's a decision. But I really do think that, especially given some of the things that we've been talking about lately. That the opportunity for our community to grow and develop as a result of the new Highway 26, Highway 59 corridor. And how different our city is with so many of the new amenities that we're bringing in. That this logo and this branding that we're talking about, whatever it is, I think it's important to really publicly demonstrate and promote the city as respectful of our proud history, but with something new. And so I would encourage you to take a look at these two logos and pick the one that you like and move forward.
I'll just talk a little, I just wanted to talk briefly about, I was going through Facebook and Inga had put up the shovel ready thing on our city Facebook, and because of the way Facebook sizes images, only the emblem was visible on my Facebook feed, only the circle with the railroad and the highway and the sun. And that was on a day when everyone was hating the tree so much. And so I just dropped the text in on this because it is modern, because it does have historical elements. That my concern at the outset was that it was too business oriented. But it's grown on me because I think that to a large degree, we are business oriented. We are business oriented. I think there's some things that we could do with the city of Milton and a community since 1838 to soften it. I am not a graphic designer. I did that in Word. But before we spent any more time on it, we wanted to see if it was even something that worked for you. What I get excited about thinking is of it being the emblem, like Janesville's got their tree on their bridges. On our marketing materials for the business park, it looks good. It says we're modern, it says we're substantial and a city to be reckoned with. And most of all, what the business community likes is that it's kind of forward focused, I guess, in that it's a modern look. It's not the Milton House. It's not, family laughing. It's very modern. For better or worse, that's what they like. So
Well, why the railroad tracks?
I'll open it up.
I don't like the idea of railroad tracks.
Well, if you look at the business we brought in out here, the good paying businesses are the ones with the rail. We're talking about the rail and the other one. I'm with you. I like this better. I mean, the people that talked to me, it's not that they were opposed to the tree, but they said it was just reminded them too much of Janesville.
Boring.
Yeah, and that they wanted something different, and when I first looked at it, it appealed to me, and I'd go with whatever you guys want, but I mean, I like this new one.
What I think I'm hearing is that we're getting worn down and just, this isn't as bad as some of the others. Is it what we want?
City of Madison's going through this right now too. They have, half their council likes their seal. It's like the state seal, but it's the city seal. And half the council and the mayor are pushing those emblems that you see on the overpasses with the Capitol and the day and the night.
Those are awesome. I love those. Why can't we get something like
We can,
that?
we can pick you can pick everything apart. There isn't anything that we design that you can't pick apart and find faults to.
I think that the thing that's been frustrating for both groups that have worked on it, and probably for years, is that we don't have that iconic building or there's just not something that can anchor a logo. So then you go to this kind of a style where it starts to compile. So railroad, road meaning progress, sun meaning whatever sun means. I choose to mean it means it never rains here, but
I would make a motion to accept this new one.
Did you want to change the typeface and the community?
That would be fine with me. I like the design. If we want to,
You've got a
all we
Sarah-
really need is direction that that's something that you want to see further refined.
I would make a motion that we further refine this new logo.
That's a motion. Is there a second? Is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just interject.
Go ahead.
The city's tourism development committee met this morning and talked about this very issue. And the thing I like about having both the tourism development committees and the economic development commission meetings here is we get direct input from business community owners. So Beth Drew, Tammy Dosh, Terry Williamson, who are on that committee, said this morning that they like this better than the tree. And those folks are gonna be the champions of this thing. You're probably going to invest, by the time all of this is done, several $100,000 into, business cards and stationery and all that kind of stuff. Welcome to Milton sign, you look at how that would, potentially in a stack stone right along Highway 26, present itself. You have an example already in the Crossroads Business Park, as that is the symbol that is out there when you're coming in off of Highway 59 and coming into the city.
It's hardly promoted because I drove by just to be sure of what I was, the symbol is about the size of a basketball. So it's kind of hard to get the enthusiasm.
You have to get closer, so it, just get right down.
If you were younger, your eyes would see it better.
Yes,
That's the problem
absolutely.
I always face all the time.
Sweet of you,
Picking
dear.
on her now?
Yes.
No, I have the same problem. I can't see it either.
So the business owners on the city's tourism development committee were in support of that concept being refined.
I think they're wearing down.
Many of them have been on the city's marketing and branding committee that transitioned to tourism development, again, 2 years in the works. So motion and second, that's all I have.
Any further discussion? All right. Motion was to further refine the new logo based on the Crossroads Business Park emblem. All those in favor?
Aye.
Let's just do a, we'll do a,
Couldn't hear very well.
we'll do a roll call vote.
Oh, we are, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Welch?
Aye.
Rouge?
I guess.
That's fair.
Adams?
She's not gonna oppose it.
Striegel?
No.
Lauder?
Well, you're only refining it. That's a very weak yes.
And Brewing?
All right. Motion carries 4-2. Jerry
Refine
thought,
it significantly.
Jerry thought I was gonna have to break the tie. That was our bet today. There was no lunch on it. I should have.
Doing any more over-unders?
Kind of wavy ones, so.
What's that?
I said, you got two that are kind
Yep.
of wavy, they should have said no.
Well, we're saving our nose till it comes back.
Comes back unrefined.
See what we can do.
Maybe
Um,
I like the
Partly the
typeface.
color.
It's just the same font that Crossroads was in. Before we move on from that agenda item, I just want to prepare everyone, if you do not like what comes out of this next round, we'll have to regroup and start over, and not start over necessarily, but we will have to invest additional resources, I'm sure. So, just keep it in mind, which isn't bad. Lots of companies spend a hell of a lot more than whatever we've spent, $7,000.
I asked our former accountant what the city of Middleton spent on their logo design. It's just over $45,000.
Oh, we have a lot more time then.
They got a bigger tax base.
Plenty more rope to go.
We can start drawing ourselves for that.
In fact, he told me, do not do that, Jerry. Convince them to get along with us.
No matter how bad it looks.
Graphic art?
All right, here we go. Let's just get it out of the way. The former item C1 in item 15 is approval to purchase lighted school crosswalk and pedestrian signs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This came out of the Public Safety Committee, and it had to do specifically with the purchase of lighted school crosswalk and pedestrian signs. The school district of Milton and the city of Milton have been in conversations with increasing the illumination of the crosswalks. In conversations that I had with Superintendent Shiger when we were looking at the crossing guard issue and MOUs, I know that Madison Avenue near the middle school was an important area for them, and near Northside Drive in particular. They are willing to pay $4,000 for those signs, and would do so in 2013. The question that I have for you folks is, the Public Safety Committee talked about city participation. We did not define the funding source yet, if you want that to try to be a 13 expense or a 14 expense. 13 expense, we really don't have the money in the sign budget for that $4,000. We could go to contingency, although there's other monies that are coming out of contingency that we're gonna be making recommendations for snow supplies. You just made a recommendation, or an authorization for me to spend up to $5,000 on that annexation, so My question for you, do you wanna wait to try to get that, our portion in the 14 budget, depending on what numbers come in, that $4,000? Or do you want us to try to do this in 13?
Jerry, I think it's 6,200.
6,200 is the total
3,200 for
So let's be 6,400 for us, 6,400 for the school.
for the school district, okay, thank you.
The school said they'd only pay 4,000.
No, Tim said he would just get 4, just he told them, tell me what it costs. I thought it was 4,000, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they agreed to pay half, we'll pay the other half.
Oh.
So it's 6,400 for us.
It does need to be purchased now, though,
Correct.
How soon can they be put up?
because it's getting dark earlier now.
If we got them voted to do it, can they be put up so that by winter they're,
Just have to order them, I would assume they're readily available, and then DPW could install them.
And how do they meet with snowplow?
They're LED, they're like road signs, they're.
Or on the sidewalks?
Correct.
Where are we gonna get the money?
Yeah,
That's up to you.
Well, I'd
Can't
like,
take it out of the utilities?
I'd like to ask Connie what she thinks would be better, to do it out of this year or to do it next year.
Originally, they were in the 2014 budget, and they were cut because we couldn't afford it. I mean, I'm not gonna be the one who says you can't afford to put something that's safety.
Who
Not
wants to
put
be
it
that
in.
person?
The problem is, we're already using funds that, you just need to know, we're already using funds that we normally use as buffer zones. We have our contingency, but as you'll see later on, we wanna use most of that to get a new server for the police department. So I don't think there's gonna be much left there. There are other funds that we have available that we haven't touched, but normally we use that so that when we go, if we go over, it balances it out. It,
What's the school district's appetite to just fund the entire thing?
We did not ask.
How did they come up with that? What did Tim say? Because sometimes he throws around, I'll just pay for it.
Yeah, I just ask them, see if they're willing to fund the whole thing. I mean, if we, we're.
Well, maybe they could just we could just
Lend
do an
us-
IOU. We'll pay you in
pay you
installments.
in 2018, when we get this
projection
one.
worksheets done, and then by the first, was the projection worksheets due the first week of November?
Yes, they were.
And so we would have a better idea about the funding. But I know that there's several things that Howie needs to purchase from his budget that doesn't leave room there. And so I don't want to, I wanna make sure we have a funding.
But what are these other funds you alluded to?
What we do is we budget $30,000 a year for OPEB, for future expenses for, what that is retiree benefits. We fund $16,000 a year to drop into fund balance for, debt, if we want to refund a loan, because we're gonna get a better interest rate. Those funds, in the last 2 years that I've been here, the OPEB monies have gone to pay for retirees, payouts, when for their time that they had earned over the years that they've been here. We only have one retiree this year, and it's gonna come out of the wastewater fund, so those funds won't be used. However, we're way over budget on salt and sand for snow, and we wanna use part of those funds for that. There's additional funds available there, but those are our buffers that if we go over into things, it's there to move around if we have to. There's money there if we wanna use it. I just wanna be cautious because we're really tight this year, and I don't wanna put us in a position, especially since, I mean, most of our fund balance is gonna be used for the police and the city hall building.
And you will see an unusual amount of budget amendment requests this year due to some of the unanticipated challenges that we've had on the staffing side of things, in particular at the police department. That we have to proceed with a lot of caution even with $6,000. I'm not saying we don't have it, like Connie said, we had $10,000 budgeted for labor attorney expenses for contract negotiations. Fortunately, we got voluntary settlement, we didn't have to spend any of that. The only, things that we spent, we spent $300 in labor attorneys this year. So we have some money there, so we could do budget amendments and budget transfers. So those are the funds that Connie's talking about.
So can we go back to asking the school to pay for them?
Sure.
But then when would we vote on this?
We would vote on it at your next meeting in November.
what's the soonest they'd even go up then?
Well, why don't we say if you talk, have a conversation with Tim, if Tim agrees to fund it all, that we would approve it, so we can order them as soon as possible to get them put up.
Well, they would have to take it to
They
their
agree to pay
school
for them all,
board.
we don't really need our approval then, do we? I mean,
The other component to it, and I don't know how many further discussions were had, Chief, but he said 4 for sure around the Madison Avenue area were the most pressing, and then the other 4 around Parkview Drive and then up near
Right,
Crescent.
the most critical one is Hilltop that we needed that would be $3,200, because they're 1,600 per sign, you need them on both sides. And then the other one would be down at Northside, so that would take care of the most critical areas. So if they tell us, no, we're only spending 6,400, well, then we take care of what I consider
But I-
dangerous crossings.
right, and I think we should authorize Chief then to order them, if they would take care of those, because then we would, because I would feel bad if something happened, because we discussed this, Maxine, at Public Safety, didn't we? And I know how well they work, because when I go to Oregon to sub, I go through Stoughton, and Stoughton has those signs, and they do wonders. Yeah. I would say that, I would like to say that we should authorize him to buy at least the schools portion, and see if Jerry has a conversation, you can have a conversation.
Conversation with you.
May be able to identify another, I mean, this might be something we could fundraise for or something like that too. But we need some more clarity on the cost. This is gonna be a theme we hear an awful lot, this year and next, is that we don't have the flexibility, right now to just throw money around.
There might be, we talked to some of the parent-teacher organizations, have Tim do that, safety, that they might fundraise something, at least do something to help with funding some of these signs. Because they look for things for projects sometimes.
You could, compromise is to authorize the purchase of the first 4, and then see what we can do from there. I'll have a better idea, our projection workings aren't due till the first week of November, and so I'll have a better idea of where we're gonna be at the next council meeting. But I just don't have, without knowing what other departments need to spend, and I just don't have a good idea that there's money there. There's always fund balance, I mean, you can always go to fund balance, it's not like you're asking for $20,000 or $30,000 to lower the fund balance. And if that's what you wanna do, I need that in the motion, but I just don't want to, it is gonna require a budget amendment, I guess is what I'm saying.
I'm gonna make a motion to authorize that we purchase the 4 that the school district agreed that they would pay for.
Well, they didn't, I don't know that they say that we would just pay half.
Connie, is what you're proposing that we would offer to pay our half of the first 4?
We can do that, but
And what's that cost?
3,200 for 2,
3,200 total for 2.
so it's going to be 6,400 for 4.
Okay, so our half would be 3,200.
Well, let's do that then.
Our cost is 6,400. We need them we need 8 signs, because we were gonna do it at Milton East and Milton West, Northside, and then Hilltops. So we need them for those intersections, so we need 2 per.
But could we do not all of those intersections, just,
They're not as greatly needed at Milton East and Milton West, because there's not a lot of kids crossing Madison Avenue at either school.
so we could do half of them and then it would only be 3,200 for us?
Sure.
Yeah, if half of the 4, because if 4 is 6,400, then the half would be 32.
Yeah, I agree with Teresa that we shouldn't just say buy the school district ones, because that's not fair to them. Because when we discussed this, we agreed that we would take half of it. So I think that's a fair way to do it. And then see if Tim would be interested, we could ask them if they would be interested in buying the other ones, if they wanted to fund some more for those, yeah. So I'll make a motion that we buy the 4 signs where the city pays for half and authorize $3,200 for those, for our half.
From what funding source?
And what funding's,
Did you say what would be the best one?
general fund?
General,
Well, the contingency fund or the general fund balance.
Right, from the general fund balance.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second, any further discussion?
Was that 4 we needed or 2?
No, you wanted 8.
You're gonna get two.
The other thing you can do is
Section
you
is
can,
4 signs.
4 signs.
it'd be a lot easier for us if we paid for half this fiscal year and paid half next fiscal year.
So you want it to be
I know, I think
1,600 then?
No, I mean,
No,
we
32
pay
and 32.
our
We
half
have a
of
motion.
4
Oh,
this
okay.
year, and then we install the other 4 next year and pay the half there and put it in the budget.
That can be another motion. We already have a motion that we have.
Are we seconded?
I seconded it.
We have a motion and a second, this is more discussion. Connie, is that the easiest?
Do you want an amendment?
It's gonna be,
Is it the easiest to take from, fund balance or from contingency at this point?
I don't wanna take the money from contingency because I think there is a serious need for a server at the police department and there's a serious need to look at additional hiring at the police department.
Okay.
And we're gonna need those funds. And so I would prefer if we took it out of general fund.
Which is what
Which is
was
the
in the
motion.
motion.
Let's vote on that motion. So the motion, again, can you read it back?
Motion to purchase 4 signs with the city buying 2 and the school district buying 2 from the general fund, using the general fund balance.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any additional motions on this topic?
Well, I just would like Jerry to have some dialogue with Tim to see if they would want to buy 4 on their own, or if they would wait for us to see if we could buy 2 more with our next year's budget.
Okay. Will do.
I mean, we can revisit this again.
If it's in the budget, then, I mean, if I budget it, it'll just pass with the budget, correct?
Then we don't have to.
Tim, see what we can do with PTOs too. They're normally pretty helpful with things like this. We could at least mitigate some of the tax costs.
Okay. 17A, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 386, amendment to section 202 Board of Zoning Appeals quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was presented to and recommended by our Plan Commission tonight to approve an amendment to our ordinance that mirrors existing state statute. City Clerk Ebert had proposed this ordinance change that defines the Board of Zoning Appeals quorum. Plan Commission is recommending that the council approve.
What's the number?
4. And it has to be, it used to be that you had to have a, you couldn't take votes unless there was a percentage, and then the statute actually defines the number.
Well, one says, one number is 386.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve amending, section 2-202 Board of Zoning Appeals quorum ordinance number 386.
Michelle had noticed that our code was not consistent with state statute, and that's why she brought it forward.
Second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Are you also waiving the second
Doing the first reading?
Sure, we'll waive second and third too,
and adopt?
and adopt.
Okay with the second? Must be, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 387, creating sections 78-1752E and 78-1933M, and amending section 78-104 regarding sponsorship signs. All right.
I'll make a motion that we, adopt, ordinance 387, waive the second and third reading under the,
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Does that include the changes that were made during Plan Commission then?
Yes, thank you. The Plan Commission did remove the section that required the person wishing to put up sponsorship signs to go through the city's contractor, and that the repair of damaged signs has to be within 30 days. So that if there is a damaged sponsorship sign, that Howie is authorized to send a notice that the sign is either removed or repaired within 30 days of notice.
Excuse me, what, where is this change?
section 2, number 4.
Two M.
And what did they do on 2M?
It's already in here, damage. It's item 5, where the 30-day limit for on.
But they wanted construction.
So designated
That's
city?
how it's drafted, right? Yeah. That was how it's drafted, and then the public hearing was held as drafted with leaving out the part about the contractor, right? Okay, so it went through 2 public hearings, is that correct? The first, after the first one, they took out this ordinance. Right, so tonight had a public hearing, and in the public hearing, it was approved as prepared, just want to make sure. And then they changed it,
They changed it after the public hearing. To amend it at plan commission.
And your copy there doesn't have the city contractor sign. What was in the memo had that contractor?
right? Right, yep. Okay, and so, I just want to make sure, I think it's okay, but, so there was a public hearing on this ordinance 37 as I then subsequently drafted it by taking out the part about the having to hire the city.
Yeah. You mentioned at the meeting that you were gonna take that out.
So I took that out.
We don't have any
And
more
then,
session, do we?
after that was taken
don't
out,
think so.
then the revised, as revised, it was presented for public hearing. And-
No.
No.
What we had at plan commission probably was your original.
Right,
But at plan commission, we took out the part, we took out the part about having to have a city contractor.
right,
So, and then also amended, instead of having, the wording, so it would have 30 days on the next part.
But the public hearing opened, and then it was closed, and then the revisions were made and voted on.
So there really wasn't a public hearing on the revisions then?
well, then needs to go through it again.
Should the agendas be drafted with the public hearing after some discussion, so there'd be an additional agenda item of discussions?
That's probably a good idea.
Okay.
At least with some of these things, because zoning is different, it's kind of a pain, I know, but if it goes to public hearing and then it's revised, it needs to go to public hearing again. That's pretty clear in the statute.
So let's on these things then in the future have an agenda item that precedes them all, a presentation of whatever,
Okay.
of the ordinance. Then we'll do discussion with the plan commission, then public hearing, and then vote will be the third. Because that's gonna happen every time.
Well, maybe just get together with me and make sure I got everything that they wanted.
But then, how do you notice that? Like, notice of a public hearing, everything may change at the public hearing?
No, what's being suggested is rather than saying it for public hearing right away, the mayor is suggesting that first we go before the plan commission for comment.
Uh-huh.
And then if the plan commission wants some changes to it, like they communicated this time, that those be made first. And then
Uh-huh.
after that's done, then it's scheduled for public hearing before, public hearing as they revised it. And after the public hearing, then it's less likely that there'll be changes by the plan commission afterwards. It's still possible, of course, after a public hearing, that they might hear comment and change it further. But the mayor's just suggesting that process to cut down on the need to keep renoticing the public hearing because of the cost involved in that.
So are you talking about having the public hearing immediately after the discussion?
No, maybe it's
Oh, okay.
a later
All right, that's what I was confused on. I thought you were doing this all in one night.
No.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So there was a motion and a second. Who did the motion and the second?
I did.
But we can't vote on it, right?
I know, but I just wanna
Okay.
get that in there and then.
So we'll have to put put this on, do we have to vote to put it on a future agenda, or what do we? Okay.
Yeah, I would just suggest to withdraw the motion and second, and because of what,
Yep.
of the comments that there was. I mean, technically, you could vote on it without the changes, but I don't know that you have that document.
We'll just,
Who made the motion?
Maxine,
Nobody here for public hearing. I made the motion.
So you'll have to withdraw it.
Well, I don't wanna.
we're at an impasse.
Out of order.
Get out the cookies.
Even though there was no one here that objected or listened for the public hearing?
Well, as I understand what happened, there was a public hearing,
Yeah.
and then after the public hearing, the plan commission revised the ordinance as proposed. And then after it was revised, then it went back to the plan commission, but it didn't go back to a second public hearing. Okay.
Could we have held a second public hearing?
Could have if it had been properly noticed.
Right, so we,
Because everything happened at the same meeting.
so we
tonight.
could, yeah.
Everything happened at the same time.
The public hearing happened
Usually
tonight.
Sort of
Oh,
takes.
so they made revisions tonight?
Yeah, they opened the public hearing, closed the public hearing tonight, and then the next agenda item was discussion and possible action on the ordinance,
Okay, so
and they amended it at that time.
And they revised it,
Okay.
and there was no second public
It
hearing.
was just
You can't
actually
do it.
to recommend.
Okay,
But
All right,
usually
but
when you
anyway-
have a public hearing, you don't change, you let the public say what they have pros or cons about
Right.
the ordinance.
Right.
So I didn't think that we usually discuss our changes until after the public was closed, because we usually don't comment.
That's correct. Usually you have a public hearing, and then you determine whether or not you're gonna pass it as is, or change it. And if you decide to change it, then it needs to go back through the process again. You can't just change it and pass it as change. That's by state statute. You're just stuck with that procedure.
Are you gonna withdraw your motion, Maxine?
I suppose I could.
I'll withdraw my
all
second.
right, motion and second withdrawn, all right. Item C, discussion and possible action on street repair construction on Merchant Row and Cross Ridge Park.
We got prices from Frank Brothers as an estimate to, this would, the Merchant Row one would mill off the parking lane next to the bank from where the previous pavement put. Take care of the parking lane, clear all the potholes and all the water, so. That we can do within our budget this year, within our street repair budget. The other project that we got an estimate on, that we thought if we had enough money, would be the Crossridge Park path, because there's no sidewalk out there on the city. We wouldn't have enough money for both projects in our street repair, so. We have been getting some questions about Merchant Road down there, if we're gonna repair that entire section. At some point, we can get it all done, but this would take care of the worst part of it, right next to the emergency. The Crossridge Park one, if there's money left in the street repair budget this year, or any in the sidewalk budget, we could ask if we could maybe carry that over and add it to next year's budget to get the Crossridge Park path done along with it. Besides all the regular stuff for next year. But if it's all right to have Frank Brothers do that work, we don't have to bid it out, it's below 25,000. And they do have enough time this year to finish that. But it's only gonna be in the first 23 years, like on the bank side of the street, to turn around.
So you don't want any action on Cross Ridge Park then?
The action for Crossridge Park would be if it's our funds left in the, street repair budget or the sidewalk budget, to keep those as a special fund to add to next year's budget, so that we could do Crossridge Park next year along with all our regular work.
So is it like two motions then?
You can, yeah, you could make it two motions or one.
Would we need a motion on the Cross Ridge Park before the end of the year? We know what the,
Some sort of budget.
but not necessarily at this meeting, right?
Can I carry over,
We don't have to do Crossridge.
Because we won't know a dollar amount.
the carryover would be a budget amendment for 2000.
So today, what we're looking for is the Merchant Row motion.
And then maybe later at the end of the year, I'll probably ask if we
Attorney Schrader brings up an important point that it will have to be a class 1 notice of the work to be done. More than $5,000, but less than 25.
Can we, move on it tonight? Okay, I'll make the motion that we do the street repairs and construction on Merchant Row.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible action on the 2014 water meter purchases.
We're not gonna do it at all.
On the water meter purchases, we have this in the budget for next year, with the utility budgets. This is to request permission to, send in an order to purchase the meters now. It takes, I think it might take up to 8 weeks to get them. And if we wait until the first of the year, by the time we get them, it'll be spring, and the other, work that we could have, it'll probably be going on, and we could schedule this work in the winter. So, it's just, it's kind of a pre-approval on a capital item, but the utilities are a little different than the general fund, and it is something we have to do with being our rules anyways. So, if it was all right to order these and get started on them, at least today, get them here, probably won't be here till the first of the year anyways, but permission to place an order now.
I'll make that motion that, we give Public Works permission to purchase the water meters that they need for next year.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
All right, all right, change that to order.
Yeah, that's, because we probably
Motion.
won't get them until the first of the year anyways, so we won't pay them until next year.
Water meter order,
Place the order.
place the order.
Change to the motion. That's okay with the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible action on police department IT needs.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a topic of concern as expressed by Trevor Brandenburg, our IT specialist from StarTech. He's indicated that the server at the police department, as indicated in your memo, is over 10 years old. It was purchased in 2003. He's recommending the purchase of a terminal server. We had hoped to have that quote for you tonight. We will not have it until next Monday. Part of that reason is that they were originally setting up the specs of it for just a police department only. Now it's gonna be a police department, city hall, so they're revising their quote. It will be ready for us next Monday, so the information will not be ready until November 5th.
On the amended agenda, discussion and possible action on Department of Public Works snow removal supplies.
I remember we talked about this just a long time ago, just a brief discussion about like last February that we were gonna be over in our supply money. I didn't wanna wait till the end of the year to bring it in. We talked to Connie about where there might be some funds available to pay for the extra supplies that we had used last season, and then to ensure we have enough supplies to get to the first of the year this year. It would be about 13,500 from the OPEB fund, just to get us through for the salt and the brine and the sand and just the general supplies through the end of the year. We did have just, more snow. The rain took a lot of expense last year, more than expected, so, we did have, 5 more events than we usually have in the whole year, and we're still gonna probably, on average, go up to plow 4 more times this year before the end of the year. So if it was all right to use some of those funds to supply, just the supplies for next year. We have been cutting back a little bit this year, we just down to the bare minimum, and we get a year where we have, not completely over the record snowfall, but we have extra, like an entire year from the first part of the year without the second half. That's just the main reason that it's just over budget.
I guess I wanna know, did you use Charlie Shortino or Gary Canolti for your estimate for the plow event?
I don't use that one very
Good, good. 'cause they haven't been very
Farmer's
active.
Almanac, he uses the Farmer's Almanac.
National weather prediction, a lot of radar
do you purchase this through the county still, or
We get it through the state bid.
through the state?
We get the sand from the county, which is a pretty good deal to get that from them. And we buy the salt in the state bid, so we actually pay less for salt now than we did like 6 years ago.
Okay. Is there a motion on this?
I'll move that we transfer of 13,500 from OPEB to snow supply fund to cover the costs of potential snow removal for the remainder of 2013.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 18, general items. Next meeting is Tuesday, November 5th. Are we back at 7 o'clock then? 7 o'clock?
Six.
We can have that discussion.
Put that on a future agenda.
Probably not today, but we can look at how those committee meetings go. Sometimes we run right up to it, but oftentimes we don't. So, Mayor and alderpersons reports. Alderpersons reports?
Yeah, I wanted to, well, two things. Our seed pick went well last Saturday. We had more people come. Linda, how many eventually ended up coming?
I think we probably had about 15 people altogether between the two locations.
Right.
We got our bird seed back. We got the full bag.
So I think it was a pretty good success. Representative Jorgensen joined us for a while and did some picking. That's one thing. The other thing I want to bring up is that Scott Randall's advanced, what do you call them?
Shop building.
Shop building kids are doing a project for me. They're building the benches at Liberty Station. Which all of you would go and take a look at the work that they did. They did a great job of those benches. They sand them all down. They built handmade bat rack to build from wood, which are really neat. And so they should have one more day there. Then they're gonna move over to Lamar to do those two dugouts over there. So they're putting on fascia board and everything, so it's gonna make them look nice.
Any other alderpersons reports? Okay. I just quickly, I won't go into it too deeply, but I want to thank the staff for maintaining some sense of normalcy here this week. It's been a difficult week. The business of the city unfortunately had to go on. I did what I could by canceling meetings on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to allow folks to focus on just keeping the trains running on time. But unfortunately, now we have to get back to work. There's a lot of things going on. Tomorrow will be an opportunity to hopefully get some closure, at least in the beginning. But unfortunately, things don't stop moving, and our city staff carried on like champions, and I appreciate that very much. On to staff reports. City Administrator.
Mayor, you said everything that I was gonna say. I know it was a particularly tough time for all of our employees this week, but it had been a while since I had an opportunity to work with our police officers, and I unfortunately had that opportunity on Sunday night. And I can't speak highly enough of the job that they did during a series of events that I hope to never have to go through again. And so Chief Labor and his staff, as well as the mayor said, all of our city employees just, they did an impeccable job. I'll just leave it at that.
Public Works.
Just 3 quick ones. Parks are closed now, they're closed now for the winter. One thing, just in case any complaints, it's sludge week down at the treatment plant, so it's gonna smell for about a week.
I'm calling the DNR.
Well, they know, they approved.
They approved the smell?
They did.
They dropped some off.
Part of the wonderful process. It's sludge week down there. And then, we have to drain water over this week. There might be some, lower pressure in the area that's already low pressure up by the high school, so we have to clean it and disinfect it for every so many years.
My kids call that the castle, so I'll let them work on the castle this week.
Gas is getting rid
That's it? All right, Police Department.
I would echo what the mayor and Gary has said about John's death. Really appreciative of our community and what they do, and when there are problems, tragedy like this, and they have been great. Food being
Library, Joint Fire, City Treasurer.
Just a quick update, since the last budget meeting, and since the budget is pretty much done, we'll be, issuing the public hearing, the notice for the public hearing with the final budget numbers that we've already seen in the previous meeting. Our projection worksheets are due in a little over a week, and so we'll have a better idea at the PNF in November of where our financial status is. We'll also have all of our, state share funding coming in, so we'll have the bottom line on our revenue numbers. So both those events are coming together. And then we've started getting our tax certifications, and so we'll have a better idea of the revenue in our state for next year.
Excellent. That's all, folks. A motion to adjourn is in order. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.